Hello, everybody. My name is Kim Dorman. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for the Princeton Public Library, and I am delighted to welcome all of you here this afternoon. I just want to take a moment to orient you to Crowdcast if you haven't used this website before. As you can see, I'm never sure which direction it'll be for you, but on the side of the screen, there's a chat box that sort of says, hello, how are you at the moment? At the bottom, there's a call to action, which you can click the green button to find out more about the League of Women Voters, Princeton Area. And also just below that, there's an Ask a Question feature. So at any point during the program, you can ask a question in that box. And yes, thank you, Jamie. You can ask a question in that box, and we will get to the question and answers after the presentation. If you see a question that's just the exact same question that you wanted to ask, you can also vote that question up so we know that that's a popular question. As my colleague Janie Herman points out, we also have a Vote 2020 library information that the library gathered together that will also list all of the events that we have upcoming, both with the League of Women Voters and soon with Ingrid Reed. And that's at princetonlibrary.org/vote. Before we start the program, I'm going to disable the chat, but you'll be able to see that. After the presentation, I'll bring it back up. And so you can also ask questions at that point. But now to start our program, I am delighted that we are able to work with such a wonderful organization as the League of Women Voters. We are doing 3 events with them. You can find information about that either on the vote portion of our website, on our public calendar, or through Crowdcast. We have 2 more programs coming with them. October 5th at the same time, we're answering the question, is voting by mail safe? And on October 19th, also at noon, we're answering the questions, how and where to vote. So I hope that you are able to join us for those other events as well. But for now, please let me welcome Cindy Gordon and Ellen Kemp from the League of Women Voters.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. I'm going to put up a presentation for you right now. And we'll get started. Okay, welcome. As Kim said, my name is Ellen Kemp, and I'm representing the League of Women Voters of the Princeton area. We especially want to thank the library for putting together this great program on voting. Today is National Voter Registration Day, so we have picked today to start this program and to concentrate on making sure you're registered to vote. Once you're registered, then we can deal with all the questions and differences on this year's election. But the first thing is to be sure you're registered. The League of Women Voters was founded in 1920, right after the passage of the 19th Amendment, where women won the right to vote. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization whose main purpose is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation in government. Our name derives from our proud legacy of the women's suffrage movement, but today our members include men and women dedicated to safeguarding democracy. So I said today is National Voter Registration Day. It was established in 2012 to take place on September 22nd every year. Right now, thousands of national, state, and local organizations and volunteers are taking part in events like this to encourage people to register to vote in advance of the election in November. Nearly 3 million Americans have registered to vote on this holiday since the first National Voter Registration Day. As I'm sure you're aware, 2020 is a different year for elections, due primarily to the pandemic and how people are going to go about voting. In New Jersey this year, all registered voters will get ballots in the mail, and we will talk about how you can check to see if you're registered. You should receive your ballots by October 6th. If you have not received them by the end of that first week of October, you should contact the county clerk to make sure to find out why you haven't received your ballot and to make sure you get one. There will not be any sample ballots because what you receive will be your ballot. You will receive a postcard telling you where the places you can return your ballots or where you can vote on election day if you choose to walk in and vote. If you choose to walk in and vote, and we'll get into this later, if you go to the polls, you will have to vote provisionally using paper ballots. The recommended way to vote this year is to vote by mail. Now, first, you need to determine whether or not you're eligible to vote. To vote in New Jersey, you must be a United States citizen, must be at least 17 years old, although you may not vote until you have reached the age of 18. However, if you will be 18 by election day, you can register when you're 17. You must be a resident of the county where you want to vote before the election. And you must not be serving a sentence of incarceration as the result of conviction of any indictable offense under the laws of this or any other state in the United States. Now, the first thing is to determine whether or not you are already registered. You can go to this website, which you see on the left, and which I think we will put in the chat box so that you can copy it down if you want to. But if you go to this website, you sign in, you put in your name and your date of birth, and you'll be able to see all the information and your election history, and you'll find out that whether or not you're registered to vote. It brings up this screen on the official site of the New Jersey election screen, and you just fill this in and it will tell you whether or not you're registered to vote. Now you might need to register, even if you're not a first-time voter, you may have to register if you've recently moved. You have to be in this county, the county where you're voting, for 30 days. So if you have moved from another county within the state, you can still vote in that county. If you changed your name, you should re-register. If you changed your address even within the county, it's a good idea to re-register. And then again, if you have never voted and if you are going to be 18 by election day, you should register. There is also, in addition to the website that I gave you, there is a mobile app for New Jersey elections where you can check all this information. The deadline to register is October 13th. This year, just within the last month, New Jersey has set up online registration. So you can register online if you have a driver's license or a New Jersey ID card. And you just go and you put that into this registration page, fill it in, and you will be registered and you will get a confirming postcard within about 2 or 3 weeks. If you do not have a driver's license, you can register with your social security number. If you also have the ability to upload a digital signature. So if you go in on a tablet or a cell phone and put in your social security number, and then you can either write in your signature or you can upload it. And then if you cannot do that, then you will have to go and register in person. If you need more information, the League of Women Voters has a website set up called Vote 411, and it will take you to all the information you need. And it is specific to zip code, state. You can find out what's on your ballot. You can find out where you vote. You can register. It has links to any voting information you might want to find. In addition to Vote 411, the library has a lot of resources on voting that you can look up information. It's very important to make sure you have credible information. There's a lot of confusing information going out because everything is so busy, so different about this year's election. So if you have questions, go to your state website or the county website or any of these facts if you have questions about how something is working. Now, these are the key election dates. For registration, the most important one is October 13th. That is the last day you can register to vote. Now, hopefully you will have done it in plenty of time. If not, you can actually go to the Board of Elections and or the county clerk and register on October 13th. But it's much better to do it ahead of time. Now, October 5th is the deadline for mail-in ballots to reach all active registered voters. So if you are registered and you don't get your ballot by October 5th, you should call the county clerk. November 3rd is election day. November 5th is the last day ballots can be received in the mail without postmarks. And November 10th is the last day to receive ballots with postmarks. As both Kim and I said before, the library has set up several more information sessions like this on voting. On October 5th, they will have a session on how voting is safe, easy, and secure to answer all your questions on voting. And October 18th, they'll have a discussion of how and where to vote this year.
19.
Many counties are still in the process of determining where their drop boxes and polling places are going to be, but it should all be in place by October 5th. And that's a general overview of how to register to vote and a little bit about voting this year. But if you have any questions, we can take them now. Thank you.
And just a reminder, if you have any questions, you can either enter them in the chat or using the Ask a Question feature at the bottom. In the meantime, as we're waiting for people in the audience to ask questions, how has, I know that many of us in 2020 in every organization are scrabbling to find ways to adapt to this new world. How has that been for the League of Women Voters? What solutions have you been finding? Are there silver linings in this new world? I don't know, if, Cindy, maybe you also want to.
I can talk to that if you want.
Sure, Cindy.
Well, it's interesting. Just this morning, we had an event at the Princeton Public Library, but outside and in real time, not online, to celebrate National Voter Registration Day. And it has been quite different for the League. You're probably familiar with seeing us or other people sitting at registration tables in past years, handing out paper ballots, or not ballots, registration forms. And unfortunately, because of COVID, we're not doing that this year. But we've tried to figure out different ways to do it. For example, I don't know if this is going to be very visible, but we're using this QR code in many instances, because what that is, if you're not familiar with QR codes, it's similar to a barcode, it's or a URL. And if you just take a picture of this with your camera, it will take you directly to the online voter registration feature that the state of New Jersey has set up this year. So we're using this. I had this sign that I was showing people on the Heinz Plaza this morning, but it's also been on flyers that are posted. I know the library has some of these flyers, and businesses in downtown Princeton and in other places in the area. Somebody can post this in their window, on their website, or in their social media, and it allows somebody to easily get voter registration information and actually sign up to register to vote without us being there at the table handing out the forms.
That's terrific. We do have a question for the audience, and I think that this is something that you're also going to be answering on the October 5th one about, is voting by mail safe? But the question is, how do we encourage older citizens to register and vote online? Many that I have talked to are hesitant to do so.
To register or to vote by mail?
I don't know if this person can clarify that
Right.
question, but I think that generally speaking, there's a lot of hesitation about anything that's online. So, can you speak to briefly about why it's safe before our next session?
It is a secure site on the New Jersey website. I'm just trying to think the best way to phrase it. To register online, you do have to put in your driver's license number, but it is, I wouldn't advise doing it from a public terminal, just because you don't know what's saved on public computers. But essentially, it is as safe as anything you do online. It is encrypted, a secure website. If people really don't want to register online, it's especially this year, it is a more difficult process. But if they don't want to register online, you can also go online, go to your county website, or go to the state website, or go to the League of Women Voters website, anything that has a voting page. And especially right now, the state and the county websites and the league websites and this Vote 411 all have very prominent information about this election, including how to register. And you can download a paper registration form, which you can then print out and send in by mail. And if you really are uncomfortable giving out information online.
And by the way, this is what the registration form looks like. You've probably all seen them. And the library, the Princeton Library, and I'm sure other libraries as well, actually have printed copies of the forms available. So you could go to the library and physically pick up the form if you're not comfortable doing it online, or you don't have access to a computer for whatever reason. And if you haven't registered before, it's nice to know that it's a one piece of paper, double-sided. You fold it up, and the postage is paid. All you have to do is drop it in a box. And there really are a bunch of safeguards that the state and even federal government have put in place on ballots, and when the ballots go out from the counties or when they're received. And there are barcodes. I don't know if you see a barcode here, but there really are, when you receive your ballot in the mail, you'll see barcodes on that. And there are many, many safeguards in place. I think it's new, and it's probably uncomfortable for some people, but we feel that it's safe, and we would encourage you to do what you're comfortable with. But if you need to go to the library and get a form, fine, but there really is a safe system online.
Thanks so much. They followed up with a question about, even registering, that people might not have access. And I know that that's something that the library world is definitely thinking about, people's access at the moment. Not everyone has access to the internet. Mm-hmm. And I just want to do a brief plug to say that the library is open for abbreviated hours from 9 to 1 p.m. Monday through Saturday. We do have public computers there. And while they are public, and Ms. Kemp's caveat that about using public networks, I can say that privacy is a almost number one issue with libraries, and so we work very hard to make sure that none of your data is stored on our computers, and they get wiped after each session, which at the moment each session is 15 minutes. So if for whatever reason you don't have access, or you'd like a little bit more information, you're welcome to come down to the library between 9 and 1 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
And I can only echo what Kim has said, is that the library does an amazing job of providing internet access for people who do not have access to it. It is one of the best providers of this for the community. So if you have a problem with getting online, or of trusting what you're working with at home, the library is just a wonderful resource to do this.
And there are hotspots on the Heinz Plaza too, in front of the library. I tried it out today, as a matter of fact. So they make it very easy for you even without going inside. If you need internet access, the library has a lot of good resources. And I'd like to echo what Kim said in the beginning about their website. They really have done an excellent job of putting together many resources on their website. So go there, as well as vote411.org if you have any questions.
It's a love fest.
There's nothing like the library.
Nothing like the League of Women Voters.
Thank you.
So
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
What is new this year, and maybe Ellen can explain it a little bit more, is that, as you mentioned, to be eligible to vote, you cannot be incarcerated. But we have a new program in New Jersey where people who had been convicted of felonies or are on probation are allowed to vote now. I don't know, Ellen, if you have anything more to describe that program, but that's new this year.
No, but that is new this year, passed in New Jersey, that the felons who are no longer incarcerated, who have served their sentences, can vote.
And I think there's 80,000 people in New Jersey who this has affected.
Right.
So,
That's wonderful. Do you know if there's outreach to those populations?
there is.
There is one member of our league who is working closely, I think, with actually another organization who is working.
Yeah, there's a
with. I can find out the information, but there is another group who are working with ex-prisoners to mainly, I mean, working with them to get them back into the mainstream of society. But part of that is working to make sure they know that they can vote, because many of them do not realize that they can vote, because in many states you can't, even if you have served your sentence.
No, indeed. In fact, I would be grateful if either you or the person who's working on that could send me a blurb with information about that, and I can read it tonight at the Civil Rights Commission meeting, in part to raise awareness about that, because it's a really wonderful step forward. People who, coming back into citizenship should get their rights. So,
right. It's really great. And one of our members who's been working with us, I think they have weekly, not in person, but I believe actually by telephone. Almost.
Right. They used to do it. They did pre-COVID. They did it in person. Right.
And one of our league members who's doing this was describing how just telling someone that they could vote after being incarcerated, they were so excited. It was, like a wonderful rite of passage for them. So I think it's a great thing. And yes, Kim, I'll send you a blurb about that. It's an organization that is in New Jersey that is, I believe, the head of the organization is former Governor McGreevey.
Yes.
And I think it's called Gateway or something like that, but I'll get the information. And the league is partnering with them to help them educate people around the state, because there are a lot of people.
Yeah. We don't have any more questions at this time. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
We've posted some of the information about where to check your registration status, where to register. If you live in Mercer County, there's a link to the Mercer County Board of Elections, and the boards of the counties, depending on where you live. If you live in Princeton, you're in Mercer County, are the ones who post all the information. And as we get closer to the election, you'll see more and more updated information about where to vote, the polling places, and the secure drop boxes, which we don't need to talk about now. Come back for the next session to hear more about that. But the Mercer County Board of Education, whatever you're in, or the state board, I didn't mean of education, of elections, are the place to go. And they have all the updated information.
Right. And it's new for them as well as for everyone. And so they're trying to figure out the best way to handle all this and where to set up the drop boxes and the polling places. And so as they make their decisions, as Cindy said, everything will get updated. The other thing I just might put a plug in for is they're looking for poll workers. Because the counting of the mail-in ballots will start 10 days before the election. Counting the ballots is going to be a big job this year. And also at the polling places, many of the former poll workers are people who might be older, who feel that they're at risk and are not going to work at the polls this year. So if you're interested in working at the polls, go through the county, but they currently are looking for poll workers.
And it's paid.
It's paid, right?
That's excellent. Okay, and the last question is just whether or not this program that we've just hosted will go on YouTube, and I'm happy to say yes, it will. It should be on YouTube by next week. So contact the library if you have any questions about finding it, or you can contact me directly. That's Kim Dorman or K Dorman at PrincetonLibrary.org. I've put it in the chat. All right. Well, Ms. Kemp, Ms. Gordon, thank you so much for coming to the library or virtual library on Crowdcast for these questions. Somebody's just saying, Stephanie Oster says, I hope we can tap into all the college-age kids who are home from school to work those polls. I have to confess that I contacted my college-age kids and said, are you registered? Can you?
Right, and that's something that we maybe will talk about too in the later discussions or presentations is for college-age kids to figure out where they should be voting.
Yeah.
It's even more confusing this year than in past because some of them aren't really sure where they're going to be on election day or where they have declared. Somebody may have declared that they were going to be voting in Vermont, but they're home now. So if you have college-age kids, it's a good idea to check their registration status and make sure if they're now home, that they're registered in New Jersey.
I think there's a piece on vote411.org that's kind of a checklist for college students to take a look at too.
All right, terrific. So we'll see you again October 5th at 12 p.m. for Is Voting by Mail Safe?
Great.
Good.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.